It's time for a death battle!
Rewritten.
Shoto Todoroki, the prodigal son of fire and ice from My Hero Academia.
Weiss Schnee, heiress to the Schnee Dust Company and member of the Huntress Team Ruby.
From his right side, Todoroki can summon intense bouts of cold, freezing the air or even creating massive glaciers of ice.
Teen, Shoto named this super iceberg something badass. Heaven-piercing ice wall!
He can create sheets of ice to slide on or propel himself forward as if riding a Heeley. While he can't manipulate the ice after he's launched it, he has extremely precise control over its initial release. He can even freeze opponents so thoroughly that they are frozen both inside and out, effortlessly causing necrosis and shattering body parts. But Todoroki has a problem. While he is highly resistant to cold, he's not immune. Getting too much ice from his right side will cause his body temperature to drop until he falls unconscious, potentially even suffering frostbite.
I mean, it takes freezing an entire building before side effects even start to show.
But with cold and hot combined, they could counter each other's weaknesses. While he's much less proficient with fire given his lack of experience with it, this half of his quirk is identical to Endeavor's. His fire is hot enough to melt Tetsu Tetsu, whose body can turn to steel, which means it can reach temperatures over 1600 degrees.
He can blast fire like a raging inferno, form walls of flame to block off areas, and use his Evil Dad's signature technique, Flash Fire!
Flash fire is a method of compressing flame under super hot temperatures before releasing it in a single strike. Endeavor can also shape his fire, use it to cling to walls, and fly.
Fire and ice combined put both quirks at their best. Shoto's one of the best in his class, taking hits from a tank like Deku, fighting top-tier foes like Stain, and keeping up with classmates like Bakugo and Tokoyami, who can block Kaminari's electricity.
And while he's often criticized for relying too much on his quirk, Todoroki is incredibly smart and a quick thinker, reading and setting traps for his opponents in the blink of an eye.
Merc Nasty here is a multi-action rapier with a 3-foot-long blade. But guess what? It's also a gun! A 6-slot revolver-style chamber that Weiss fills with bullets colored like the rainbow.
Vials of dust, which she can fire to enhance her weapon and skills. In the world of Remnant, dust is an energy source, often used to fuel vehicles, androids, and weapons. Long story short, there are 4 main types of dust: air, lightning, fire, and water.
And Weiss likes to mix water and air together for her favorite, ice dust.
Can also attack with fire, launch a windstorm, block attacks with barriers, and many other techniques. Needless to say, Myrtanaster is a surprisingly versatile weapon.
She also uses dust to boost her semblance, which is basically her X-Men superpower. Weiss gets hers from her family line and can do a bunch of stuff with it.
She can make glyphs on surfaces or in the air, each with a different color denoting its ability. Black glyphs hold things in place, while white ones propel things forward. Also, by infusing glyphs with dust, she can manipulate their effects. For example, a touch of lightning dust lets her dilate time, dramatically increasing her speed.
Or even better, she can use the glyphs to summon monsters to aid her in battle, like this crazy boar, a giant killer wasp, and the Armagigas.
Which literally translates to giant armor in Latin, so fitting. On topic, Weiss has a very powerful and versatile ability, and like most semblances, it's powered by her aura.
Which is like an invisible shield around her body. She's basically unkillable while it's up.
Though the aura itself isn't indestructible, it can be depleted after taking a lot of damage and needs time to restore itself. Without it, she cannot use her semblance, and she's much more vulnerable.
But that aura is pretty friggin' tough. It was just enough to take a full-on hit from a geyser of lava.
Lava can reach temperatures up to 1200 degrees Celsius, enough to melt iron. And during a food fight of all things, she was thrown into a pillar so hard it was obliterated. Best of all, with a combination of ice and her aura, she survived riding atop a speeding train crashing through concrete. By measuring the diameter of the resulting hole and applying the values of fragmentation, this means Weiss survived an impact equal to over 7 tons of TNT.
But it's not just Weiss that's tough. Her glyphs are strong enough to catapult the Armagigas, and with her ice powers, she's knocked around a giant mech built for fighting Godzilla-sized Grim.
Compared to the height of her teammate nearby, it appears she created over 2,000 metric tons of ice to exert fusion energy and vaporization energy on the nitrogen in the air, thereby freezing it like so. At most, this would require over 900 billion joules of energy, equivalent to detonating around 230 tons of TNT.
Wow! No wonder she could push that big old robot around. Plus, Weiss can also move super quick, dodging missiles and even hitting bullets out of the air.
And with time dilation, she can stay nearly untouchable while taking out her opponents in the blink of an eye.
Plus, the speed difference wasn't all that drastic. Todoroki's fellow student Tokoyami's Dark Shadow blocked Kaminari's electricity after it had been fired. Quirks are not magic, and there are very few ways for electricity to travel through the air. Lightning is essentially an ionized path that electricity travels through. Kaminari's quirk must use the same method.
Dark Shadow blocked Kaminari, Bakugo dodged Dark Shadow, and Todoroki can match Bakugo in a fight. Bada bing bada boom, that's lightning fast reflexes, baby!
With time dilation, she can stay nearly untouchable while taking out her opponents in the blink of an eye.
Taking hits from a tank like Deku. Deku's greatest feat of strength was splitting that enormous cloud formation with Bakugo.
Of nearly 80 teratons of TNT per punch.
So, at most, this would require over 900 billion joules of energy, equivalent to detonating around 230 tons of TNT.
Enough to take a full-on hit from a geyser of lava!
Lava can reach temperatures up to 1200 degrees Celsius.
To Endeavors. His fire is hot enough to melt Tetsu Tetsu, whose body can turn to steel, which means it can reach temperatures over 1600 degrees. He can even freeze opponents so thoroughly that they are frozen both inside and out.